Right there, Kara. And at the green button, there's a green light, and make sure that's on.
Oh. Oh, you touch it right at the bottom, right in front. Right there.
Oh, you mean I have to push it like that?
There you go.
There we go. Test, test. Whoa.
EUSH, let's see.
Okay, let's call to order the Brainerd Park Board meeting on January 26, 2021, 4 o'clock in the City Hall Council Chambers. Let's do a roll call. I guess we can do it. Don't have to do a roll call,
We
right?
don't have to now, do we?
If everyone's here?
With the WebEx.
Oh, sorry.
We do the oath of office.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend doing the oath of office
Oh, yeah.
first.
Okay, how do I do that?
I think Jennifer was going to take that.
Great.
Can I steal this microphone for a second?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Cost you $6.
Does that come out of the city's budget or the park board's budget?
Just put it on our tab. Easy. Put it on our tab.
All right, well, I get the honor of doing your oath. So Kara, if you could stand and raise your right hand. I, Kara Schaefer,
I, Kara Schaefer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and that I will faithfully discharge
the duties of the Office of Park Board
the duties of the Office of the Park Board
of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota,
of the City of Brainerd, Minnesota,
to the best of my judgment and ability,
to the best of my judgment and ability.
so help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, you are officially reappointed.
Yay. Once again, we may all rise.
Well, I did, because I only had a 3-year term, because I was taking over for somebody.
Oh.
So mine was up, so I had to.
Now you're for 5 more years?
Yes, I sure am.
I believe I got 6 weeks left. That's enough for me.
Okay, can you pass? This way. All right, so next up, we would do
No, there you go. Roll call?
roll call now, yep.
Tim Boder,
Aye.
Dale Parks,
Yep.
Troy Rushmeyer, Kevin Yeager,
Yes.
Kara Schaefer.
Yes. Great. So now the election of the officers, which I've never done either. Can you guys help me out?
Well, everyone here has been president except for Kevin, correct?
This is true.
So I would nominate Kevin to be the president of the board. And that would say Dave to be vice president, I would nominate, because you were the president when I came on 4 years ago. So it must be coming back around. That's my train of thought. Maybe I did it wrong, but
I'll second that. Can I second?
You just did.
Perfect.
You're not the president anymore. Who cares?
That is true. Does it?
What are they gonna do,
become
fire you?
effective? Well, not quite. I'm still president right now.
Yeah,
Is there
just-
any discussion?
Just, Jennifer, is it, you vote on the nomination first and then you have a first and a second for electing an
Yes.
officer?
Oh, okay.
Close, what you'll do is you'll close ask for any more nominations. If there aren't any more, then you close the nominations.
Okay. Are
And
there
then
any
you would
other
vote.
nominations? Okay. All right. So now we just need a motion and a second.
Yep, so you'll close the nominations, and then you'll take a motion and a second for the appointment of president and vice president.
Looking for a motion for Kevin to be pres and Dale to be vice president.
I will make that motion.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? Okay. Congratulations, guys.
Thank you.
Dun, 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 dun.
So now, is it officially Kevin's meeting?
Yep.
Okay.
All right, here we go. Looking for an approval of the agenda.
I'd like to add one thing.
Very good. What do you got,
Under,
Mr. Parks?
Under new business. I'd like to put down there, and I'll do an explanation later, but I'd like to try to define what a food truck is.
Understood.
You know?
Cool.
Do you have anywhere in particular you want this in the new business?
No, it
Fore
could
or
be at
aft?
to be at the end.
We'll put it at the
And
end.
it has something to do with the center, but I'll go into more detail.
We're gonna add this as item F then, Mr. Parks. Is that all right?
Yep.
All right, we've got an addition to the agenda, food truck discussion, item F. Do we have any other further agenda items? Hearing none, I'll look for a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
And second?
I got an approval in a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Tim Boder,
Yes.
Dale Parks.
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer,
Yes.
Kevin Yeager,
Yes.
Kara Schaefer.
Next item on our agenda is the consent calendar. Notice to the public, all matters listed are considered routine by the board and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless good cause is shown prior to the time the board votes on the motion. Approval of the minutes is up first.
I'd say make a motion.
Second that?
Got a motion, a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. We want to do all three?
Yep, I think you just asked for approval of the
Yep.
consent agenda.
Looking for approval of the agenda. We got that. First and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Okay, Tim Boder,
Aye.
Dale Parks,
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer,
Yes.
Kara Schaefer,
Yes.
Kevin Yeager.
Yes. The approval of new hires was part of the consent, yes?
Correct.
Very good. We're on to number 7. This is unfinished business. First item up here is an update on the memorial splash pad. Who would like to take this first? Mr. Sandy, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the park board. So I asked Emily to attend this meeting since the next item is going to be looking to move into the bidding phase of the Memorial Park project. I asked Emily just to attend to give us a quick update on where they're at and as far as the splash pad. And I think, Emily, I'll let you take it and you can ask me any questions too as we go.
Sure. Thank you, Paul, and good to see all of you again. So since we last had our meeting, probably a few months ago, we have since raised in the upwards about $3,000 to $4,000. The Brainerd JCs gave us the opportunity to sell tickets for them, and we did outstanding, selling 413 tickets. So our portion of just that fundraiser over 6 weeks was about $2,075. So that is a great fundraiser for us, considering all things. We've had a couple more smaller checks come in, about $800, and then we're hoping to have a Crow Wing Energize grant in the works as well. And we're just going to kind of keep on pushing along. From what I understand in the plans that have been sent to me, there is right now about a $35,000 difference in what we currently have, which is almost $90,000, and then the city match, thank goodness, of $100,000. So with the donor pieces that are the most important to me is just representing the people who have already put the money in. It looks like we're about $35K short. So we're just going to continue working on that. I do have a couple ideas as far as like the design piece. I kind of looked at that today. I don't know if you guys looked at the final design at all. It was looking like $193. So when I looked at it again today, there is a piece on there, the most expensive piece, that is actually $15,000. And I'm not fond of it because I do believe, like, it's a water table. It's kind of like 3 levels. Height is about your waist. I can see that as being one of the first pieces that gets vandalized as far as putting rocks in it. And it's got a bubble on the bottom. Now, when I think of parks and bubbles, that is the first piece that teenagers go and burn a hole through. So, being that it is the most expensive piece, and we don't have too many matching pieces on the pad, I would be more fond of maybe another matching piece, you know, an extra rock or an extra flower, which would save us almost 10 grand. You know, so I do love the design, I love the cherries and the little concepts, but the most expensive piece on there I'm not fond of. So if we could maybe free up some money there, that would be awesome. Go
I just
ahead.
have a question. The city is matching up
Yes.
to 100,000, correct?
Yes,
So if you're at 90,000, they'll match 90,000.
Yes.
correct? So it would put us at approximately 180.
yep.
And so if it's 193, are we 35,000 short or 13,000 short?
Well, because what we did is with some of the donor pieces, there was an additional that needed to be raised, with the price tag being about 193 just for the pad. What's not being accounted for is some of the bricks and pavers and picnic tables. So we're just going off the price of the pad. So as it looks like 13, but it's a little bit more than that, just to make sure that I'm honoring the requests of, the public.
I wonder if it'd be worth contacting like W.W. Thompson or.
Yes. And that was my
ask
next
For
route.
them to
Yeah, absolutely.
donate some of that stuff would be, obviously they would have
Yep.
one of their own, but.
Yep, and that was my second request. When I'm looking at the redevelopment, it's 43 pages. So I was wondering if I could get something specific to the pad, like, what are the dimensions? It's about 50-foot circle. But as far as like the rebar and all that cost, I wasn't really able to find that. I just saw like the Sourcewell package as a whole as 193, and then it might be within the 43 pages. But if I could get something specific to go into businesses, I think it would be really helpful as far as the concrete and the brickwork would go. So I don't know if that's possible at all.
Ms. Sandy, is this something that we could create?
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think we're going to continue working with Emily to look for areas where we can try to save some money. That's going to be an ongoing process. So we're hoping that, we can get up to that $100,000 mark. So we do get the whole $100,000 match from the city council. That way we can fund the whole splash pad by itself, even if we do remove the $15,000 piece in which Emily's referred. But, like she said, the biggest part is these donor items. And, WSB was kind enough to help us out through that process and provide a design and some costs to try to incorporate the items that we had indicated. However, that does come with a pretty hefty price tag. So anywhere that we're looking for getting, we're going to look for donations, we're going to look for in-kind services, help, materials, bricks, whatever it is that we can piece this together within the budget that we have laid out. We're going to continue working with Emily to do that. And when we get into construction, we'll get as much done as possible. There might be some items that are left out for future years, but at the end of the day, we're going to have a splash pad, and I think we'll be able to get it done. So
Fantastic. Are there any further, yes, please, Troy.
Is the place for these donations, is that this column on L4 or page 4, L3?
Yep, the donor column.
That's what that is?
Yeah,
And
so
then some
there,
pavers?
that is a spot that was reserved for kind of our higher dollar amount. They were gonna do a gold plaque on it with some engravings. When I had sold some of the sponsorship items, we had sold a brick, which is a smaller piece, and then a stepping stone, which is a little bigger. And then the bigger donors were gonna be on the column. So we still have some items that we do need to figure out. I don't think in the plan I saw any benches that were on there. But that's something I was told that, through Parks and Rec, we can get placed later, hoping we have the space for them.
Okay. So is there not enough room on this column for all of the donors that?
I'm not sure if there would be enough room. I probably have 175 donors. I guess my main concern with that is just not being able to follow through since it's taken so long. In beginning 4 years ago, that's how we sold it, was buy a brick for your family or your business. So I am really trying to stick to my guns on what I promised the community, being that, what it looks like isn't gonna matter, everybody's gonna love it. But I really wanna try to stick as close to that plan as I can.
The only reason I ask is it shows, one plaque on one side, but
Yeah.
I'm just, even in that design, is there room for, a couple other of those larger bricks to be flat surfaced and
Yeah.
engraved and?
Mr. Sandy, please.
yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. That design that's in the packet, that was something that WSB came up with, but literally we can do as little or as much with that design as we want to fit within our budget. And so I have a feeling that, this process is going to be very fluid as we go. So nothing in that plan is set in stone per se. Not to be funny about it, but set in stone. But yeah, so I foresee that maybe at some point, something else makes way more sense. Maybe it's
This is
stepping
just a
stones
proposal.
around the whole area or something to that effect. But that is just a reference. They did that for us and gave us some costs as an idea. If we move forward with that plan, then we know a rough estimate of what the costs are. And hopefully we can try to approach the community and get a lot of that either donated in kind or as materials or something to do it and make it more of a community project instead of a contracted project. So.
Thank you.
Any further questions?
I do have a question, just
Emily, please.
regarding the match and what we're raising. Do we have a D-Day on when that would need to be transferred from Brainerd Community Action to the city?
Not as far as I'm aware. Any city staff, any deadline here? By the time we just begin to execute or sign contracts, yes?
Yeah, I mean, if I may, Mr. Chair, I think the sooner we can let the supplier know that this is a go, I'm sure they'll require some sort of down payment before the materials come. So I can contact them and make sure that that lead time is in line with when the project starts and is under construction, so that we make sure we have the materials available to us to construct the splash pad with the contractor that the Sourcewell package comes with. So I think it's all going to be based on when we get bids back from Memorial Park. We can backtrack everything from there and try to figure out when a good day to make that transfer would be.
Which is a discussion item coming up, which I think we'll be getting
Okay.
close to having deadlines on those due dates for those bids. Any further questions? Just one quick question, so, that I have is, so the numbers that we're talking about are the proposed numbers based by WSB. Once we actually get through the bidding process, some of this math may change, north or south, don't know yet, but you alluded to it being fluid, and that's probably the case. We're not exactly sure where we're gonna land on all this stuff. Is that correct?
Yeah, and if I may, Mr. Chair, we're not asking for bids on the splash pad stuff. It was just an informational item for the board to look at. The package that's going out is everything that's outside of the splash pad area. And the city and Emily and the park board will be working together on the splash pad as a separate project as we just set property aside for the splash pad.
Understood. Thank you. Any further questions?
I just have a comment. I just want to
Please.
say great job, Emily, to you guys.
you.
I know I've seen your stuff on Facebook, and I just know that you guys have been working really hard, and just want to say great job, congratulations. So
Absolutely.
It's like getting so close.
We're
appreciate
almost
you guys.
there.
Yes.
One day closer, one day closer.
Thank you so much for your effort and
Yeah.
what you've done for this.
No,
So,
thank you guys
looks like it's
for
gonna happen,
giving
so
me
we're
the
excited about
opportunity
it.
to move it into
Writing our
Memorial.
meeting.
Everybody in this room, get the word out. Keep raising that money. We need the help,
Yeah.
so.
Even behind the mask, a smiling face made the meeting better.
Oh, thanks.
Can you tell me a little slimy sales guy?
All right. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah,
I
thank
appreciate
you
it.
guys. Enjoy your vacation, Tim.
I'll do my best.
Very good. We'll move on to item number B. This is a request to authorize Memorial Park Project competitive bidding. This is Mr. Sandy. Hit it, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I don't, am I still on? Okay. This request came from WSB. It sounds like they are getting close to wrapping up the plans and specs for our project. As you can see from the packet of materials, I attached the plans. It may have gotten a little bit long, but I think it was worthwhile having them in there. So instead of getting into the details of this, the estimate does include everything, including the splash pad and the donor items done by others. So don't take that 1.3 million, 2.6 or whatever it is into consideration. The real cost you're looking at with the 5% contingency applied is about 1.1 million. So this is the estimate before we go out to bids. Like Mr. Yeager alluded to, once the project goes out to contractors, they'll put their pricing in there. We'll have a price back as soon as the bids are closed and we open bids. And then we'll bring those back for your guys' consideration to move the project forward. So I guess unless, Chris, you have anything else to add, Chris is on the line here. But if there's not anything else, I guess we would just be looking for a motion to move this project from the final design into the bidding phase, and they'll come up with a bid opening date. So Chris, do you have anything?
No, I think you hit everything. And again, good point to bring up. You know, this total cost does include that splash pad, so don't get hung up on that total number. The number that Paul gave you is the one that we are really looking at to compare apples to apples on when the bids come in.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Sonmore. With that, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I want to clarify. So we are bidding out the splash pad, but it's not, like you just told Emily, but that's a separate money thing, right? We are bidding out this,
Bidding it out,
we're
no.
not
If I
bidding
may,
out.
Mr. Chair. we
Please,
are-
Mr. Sandy.
The Sourcewell package is completely, we're gonna be purchasing that outside of this project.
Okay.
Along with trying to garner donations and other items to incorporate and get people to help out building that other area around the splash pad. So that's a completely separate project. We just set the land aside for the splash pad, and we're moving forward with this project either way.
Yep.
The splash pad will be a completely separate, so think of them as two separate.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yep.
Any further discussion? All right, we've got a motion and a second. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote by roll call.
Tim Boder,
Aye.
Dale Parks.
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer,
Aye.
Kara Schaefer,
Yes,
Kevin Yeager.
Yes. Item number C, update on campground host. Mr. Sandy?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. As the board's aware, we sent a letter out to the campground host kind of regarding the aesthetics of the site back on January 22nd, which was last week. The letter kind of addresses the general need to pick up and clean up the site. We kind of moved this a little further into the conversation of what the long-term goals of the park board are in relation to how this site functions and how the campground functions as a whole. We have to do a lot of research and things on what we could possibly do for an automated system or anything that's available for reservations, payments, any other items that relate to the campground. But we foresee this as a 2022 conversation. We don't have anything in the budget to address this item besides hopefully getting the site cleaned up a little bit, making sure that it looks good for this summer. Really, what staff is recommending is that we work with the current host right now during 2021, help her to clean up the site, get some of our parks maintenance to help her out a little bit. And then that would give us some time to come back to you guys with some ideas on either automating or changing the way we do things at that site, whether it be a gate or a code system or something, so that we don't need someone there to manage the campground, and it can become more of its own separate functioning entity while still, getting payments and making sure that the people that are there are supposed to be there. So that's kind of what we're recommending, but we're certainly amenable to anything that you guys would direct us to do, I guess, at this point. So I'd open up for discussion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sandy. Any discussion, guys? Kara, please.
have you heard back from her? I know you just sent the letter, but have you heard anything back or, no? Okay,
Talked to her since her daughter passed away in December.
okay. All right,
I didn't want to bother her, but I should call her.
sure, yeah.
And that's why we waited, I think, wasn't it? Because it-
Yep.
Say that, I remember that, that's, yeah.
So, I guess, Mr. Chair, as soon as we hear something back, we can certainly bring that forward. So at this point, I think it's just kind of a wait and see kind of thing, but that would be our recommendation. We'll just wait it out this year if she's willing to continue the host site this year, and we'll look at other ways maybe to do things in the future, so.
Very good. Anybody else? Anything?
No, I think it's a good direction.
Step in the right way, huh?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a good plan.
You need a motion on this, Mr. Sandy?
I think the direction's good enough, thank you.
Very good, thank you. All right, item D, request to approve amended youth sports contract. Please, Ms. Kaufman.
Chair, members of the board. This is obviously, thank you. So this has been an ongoing thing for us, and we actually noticed that there was some differing opinions on these contracts last time we met. And so we decided to meet with Community Ed to see if we could find some common ground or if there's some flexibility with that. The conversation regarding the banners, and then it also led into something different. So regarding the banners, Community Ed gave us sole right to advertise on our fields and like posts and all that. But they were gonna charge us $1,500 additionally. So the total amount that we would pay them is $7,500, and then we would stay with the $5,000 with the YMCA. They didn't seem to be moved by the sole right of having banners on the fields. And then we also discussed in our meeting that it would be easy for us to implement a quarterly payment instead of a lump sum. And what that breakdown is, quarterly we would be paying community ed $1,875, and then the YMCA $1,250. With these payments, they would also be some of the red line in the contracts that we adjusted is that we would have a quarterly report also required that they would submit to us. So those reports would be like mid-month. So for example, we added March 15th, June 15th, September 15th, December 15th, and then they would be paid at the end of the month, March 31st, June 30, September 30, and then December 31st, 2021. So those are kind of the changes that we made to these two contracts. And what staff's recommending is approving the new edited versions of both the YMCA and the community ed youth sports contracts. And then also that staff recommends changing the banner advertising contract form to include youth field fence space as well. Is there any additional questions?
I have a couple, Katie.
Sure.
Please.
So, how did the YMCA and community ed, were they seem acceptable to these changes? Like,
Yes,
not
definitely.
Not a big issue?
No, not at all. No.
And then the quarterly reports, did we give them direction on what we wanted to be in those reports?
Yeah, it would be around like the breakdown between like how many Brainerd residents are signing up for their programs, and then like budgetary type reports on like the revenue versus expenses for them.
And I think for community ed, that's public anyway, but if they'll supply that, that's great.
Yeah.
And then, as far as the banners go, since we have done this, is there gonna be an effort to sell banner space on those fences? Cause there never has been in the past.
Yes.
So if that's done, would help offset that extra money paid to community ed. You know what I'm saying? We're paying them extra money to say we have sole rights, but the only reason I'm saying that is in the past, we have never sold banner space for the youth ball fields. So if we're gonna do that, who's going to lead that banner sales?
Well, I would. I sell the banner spaces for the adult softball
Yep,
fields, and like I said, I was gonna combine the youth field space with that form.
Okay.
So it would be a united form that we would submit. We did have an agreement between Community Ed and Brainerd that Brainerd would try and only advertise or send out the form contract to Brainerd businesses, and then Baxter would stay within Baxter.
And I kind of get that, and then part of that is some businesses that are owned in Baxter are owned by people who live in Brainerd and or have people who live in Brainerd that are employed by them, so, you know, I hope we don't, you know, draw a line that this has gotta be this way and you gotta be over here and we gotta be there, cause it doesn't sound like it is. I'm just saying, I think we have to be careful that we don't try to build a wall that we don't need to.
No,
You know what I'm saying?
Yep, that was discussed, and I said, you know, we're both reasonable people, and you know, if some parent wants to really put a banner on one of the fields, we shouldn't throw a stink about it. Like, we need to honor that.
Okay.
So, just as long as the communication is left open.
Good, thank you.
Please, Mr. Sandy.
One more thing, Mr. Chair, if I may. As part of the RFP that we sent out to begin with, it did state that we would retain the sole right to advertise on the field, so I don't want to lose sight of that the price probably would have been reflective of that if that would have been included in the original cost. And so I don't have any problem saying that price would have probably been $6,500 if, when the first time Community Ed submitted a price to us, they had realized that we were wanting to retain sole right for that. And so I don't know if it's additional funds. I think it's just an amendment to what their original price was based on what the RFP actually said.
Sure, and I get that. I'm just, if we're pushing back on that again and saying we want that space, then is there a reason that we want that space? Are we gonna actually try to sell banners for that space, is where I was going with it.
I think we'll find that there's absolutely interest in the banner spaces, especially when you get youth sports involved. Mr. Bedeau, I see you shaking your head. Maybe you can chime in on this.
Yeah, I actually reached out to a few business owners just to test the waters and see what they may be, and we're gonna have no problem at all. I talked with Paul and with Kevin previously about how I really appreciate this approach because it separates the two. There's a cost to having the programs run, and then there's a cost for the fields themselves. This banner sales will offset the cost of the fields, but we should really be aware of what the cost of the programs is. And if the cost is $6,500 versus $5,000, then we should be aware of that. But yeah, in terms of the interest from the public, there's absolutely very good interest. And one business owner said, I'll put one on every field. So.
Fantastic. Kara, please.
Just to verify real quick, I'm sorry, the softball fields are still going for the softball fund, correct? But the youth sports are all going for the Park and Rec fund?
Yeah, so the banners would be a direct way that we can raise money for the field that they're on. So yes, the adults banners would go towards the adult fields, youth banners would go towards the youth fields.
But we may very well find that advertisers want to be on both. So, and that I think what you're getting at by putting them both on the same sheet, we may find that those advertisers, and we may want to fashion this in such a way that there's an incentive to go on all fields versus, Dave, please.
Yeah, the one thing I'd like to note is that we should definitely be aware of what's going on the fields. We don't want to have, obviously, alcohol sales and that sort of thing on youth fields. And we should be mindful of what the system that Community Ed is doing as well. Just make sure we're in line. I believe they charge about $250 for their youth field, so we may want to take a look at that just to make sure we're in line with them. But absolutely, and like I said, when it gets down to approaching someone and saying, these dollars from this advertisement specifically go to the maintenance of this field, people were very, very interested in that.
Great, fantastic, that's exciting. Kara, please.
So Katie, once you create that, can we like post it on our website, or is there a way so that we can all share if we find someone like, hey, check out our website, so that we all have access to that? If that's-
Yes, and I apologize. I did have written in the comments that I had attached our banner form, and I did not. I apologize. But yes, I can make sure that you guys, once it is created, if I can bring it to Park Board at the next meeting, and you guys can approve it, and we can get it out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool. Thank you.
Anything else? I'm thinking this one would like a motion, is that correct? This time I'll open up for a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the changed contract with the YMCA and the Community Ed.
Second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Tim Boder,
Aye.
Dale Parks,
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer,
Yes.
Kara Schaefer,
Yes.
Kevin Yeager.
Yes. Motion passes, and with that, we'll move on to item number E, request to approve plan for community action grant. I believe this is Ms. Kaufman as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the board. This is a kind of a follow-up regarding the submission to the Community Action Grant. We did receive $500 towards our initiative that we had supplied. We wanted to do bottle fillers throughout the parks, and this would help pay towards the first bottle filler. And we would have like a groundbreaking event, and we would also sell water bottles down the road. We'd create a map of all of our water bottle fillers. The attached document has our actual submission, so if you wanted to read into it further. As you know, it states that the bottle fillers are a little more expensive than $500. So the $500 is used as like seed money. And then we did have a community member, Mr. Henry Praska of Brainerd Games, that would be interested in paying the remaining, the remaining amount that we need to pay to purchase a bottle filler. And then in the honor of Brainerd Games, that we would have a plaque, which I also mentioned a sticker, but Henry said that he would rather have more of a long-term plaque, either on or beside the first water bottle filler. And then So, moving forward, the staff recommends approving Recreation Coordinator Kaufman's plan to use Community Action Grant funding as laid out in the grant submission, with adding donation from Mr. Henry Praska of Brainerd Games to purchase water bottle filler and honoring his donation with a coordinated acknowledgement. And then staff also recommends having Recreation Coordinator seek other grant options to help gain more seed money for the community-wide Rethink Your Drink campaign for sustainability of the project and adding more water bottle fillers over time.
Great. Anything? I have a question. How did the connection between Mr. Praska and this project happen?
It was brought to me.
Well, I guess where I'm going with this, is this a connection that can be realized again and again, maybe not just with Mr. Praska, but with other, if we were able to bring somebody into this one to partner, is it something that could be realized again with maybe other partners?
Ooh, give me 40, 45, 50.
There you go.
Well, Mr. Praska is actually the president of the Community Actions Board right now, as well as
And he's my husband.
Okay. I kind of knew the answer, but I wanted to.
And I was really excited about the project, and then the money, and then he was on the community, there was just a lot of things involved with it. He's like, hey, that'd be great, let's put Brainerd Games, that's our business. So, a lot of different things were involved in that decision. Yes?
Yeah, and I just, with the other hat on from Community Action, this is what we're hopeful from these projects is we were able to give a little bit of money to each of them, and then our hope is that they'll be able to go out and find additional funding because we're supporting it, and this is a great example of that. So there are other grant opportunities out there, and I think this is a fantastic opportunity for us to start going after that stuff. So
Absolutely. Thank you to Mr. Praska and Brainerd Games and everybody involved. All right, looking for a motion on this one.
I would make that motion that we pass that water.
Second.
I'm not sure how you word it, but yes. Whatever that motion is, I'll pass.
Dale. All right, we have a motion, a second. Any further discussion? All right, hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Tim Boder,
Aye.
Dale Parks,
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer,
Aye.
Kara Schaefer,
Yes.
Kevin Yeager.
Yes.
Imagine if you would.
And that concludes our old business. If that, we will move on to new business. First item is a request to redesignate the city tree inspector. I see Mr. Chaskey rising to the forefront here, so I'm going to turn it over to him, please. Chansky. Did I say Chaskey? I don't know where I came from.
I don't know, Katie,
Hansky.
you want to kick it off?
As often as I say
were
your name,
appointed,
you would
go
think I
for
would
it.
get that right.
As being
Mr.
identified by the chair, of the board. So on January 4th, the city council promoted James Kronvik to the assistant planner position. He's previously our zoning specialist permit tech in the community development department. With the creation of that department, we had at the position, we had a vacancy that we reconfigured into the assistant planner position. Part of that job description included ability to act as the tree inspector. Part of that is seeing what was going on with the Parks Board was trying to work on, and with the Public Works Department, and seeing that as the Community Development Department, we already conducted the enforcement side of all tree inspections. So currently, how it works is Recreation Coordinator Kaufman, she is the city's tree inspector. If she tags a tree, she gives Building Inspector Jason Stockinger a list of all trees she tags. He goes through the enforcement process to ensure these trees are removed. So we thought, by putting this ability under the assistant planner, it would allow the whole process to be under one department. Additionally, with the assistant planner position, specifically with Mr. Kronvik, educationally, he is a landscape architect by trade, and prior to working for the city, spent 7 seasons working for Landsberg Nursery as a landscape architect and project manager. So he's highly familiar with all things floral and fauna.
Aren't we all?
So, talking with Sandy and Recreation Coordinator Kaufman, we saw that here was an opportunity to potentially take something off Recreation Coordinator Kaufman's duties, allowing her to do more that I know that the Park Board is looking for. However, as we looked into the city code, we noticed two things. Shocker, our code contradicts itself. Section 900 of the city code says that the tree inspections will be done for diseased trees, will be done by someone set by the city engineer. But then section 1400, which also directs trees, says that'll be done by the parks director. So what we're looking for, I think, today is to have some discussion with the park board about the possibility of the park board essentially releasing the tree inspector duties from Recreation Coordinator Kaufman, allowing them to be fully taken on by James Kronvik, the assistant planner. And then we would be bringing that recommendation to the city council to have the code amended to essentially get, to repeal section 900 because essentially it's redundant, and then amend section 1400 of the city code to say that tree inspections will fall under the purview of the community development director. Anything either of you would like to add?
If I may. Yeah, the section 900 and section 1400 are literally word for word verbatim. The only difference is the city engineer and park director language. For some reason that got missed back in the day when it changed from the engineer to the parks director, that they're the same ordinance. And so we would just be deleting one ordinance and amending the other. And so the recommendation would be that the park board basically asks the city council to change those ordinances and put the onus on the community development department for that duty.
At some point, we should really look into our code and ordinances in this city.
We need a
I'm working
proofreader.
on it. I believe the planning commission is working on that, Mr. Chair.
Very good.
We need a motion.
From what I hear, they are upstanding groups, so I'm sure it will be well handled. So you need a motion technically from us as well as the council, separate.
Yes, so we would appreciate a motion from the park board as because it currently falls under Recreation Coordinator Kaufman and what section 1400 says about the parks director. In theory, essentially, trees currently fall under the park board. So essentially what we're asking for you is to relinquish that to the community development department or recommend to the council to relinquish that to the community development department.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Chansky. Please.
I have one question before I vote on this. Katie, are you gonna sleep better at night knowing that you didn't sentence all these trees to death? If so, I'm in.
Yes.
Okay.
I have a question too. So
Please, Kara.
So the grant, is this a separate conversation? So should we do this first and then the grant? Because I know we just got approved for that grant and it looks like on here that we're gonna have him be the grant manager then too. Would that just go along with it or does it need a separate motion? To make him in charge of the grant?
I would just include it. If he's the tree inspector, he's gonna be the one
He
most
knows.
inclined to manage that grant, so you could certainly make it a part of that motion.
Yeah, just wanna, I know that before Katie said maybe she'd have to do it still, so I just wanna make sure, but it looks like here that we're gonna have them do
Yeah,
it.
we've spoken about it since, and that's when
Okay.
we determined that it would
Perfect.
just make sense. And I know
Yeah.
Katie has spoken with the granting entity, and they said it would be fine to transition it.
Okay, perfect.
Very good. With that, I'll look for a motion.
Here, you're good with that verbiage, I'll let you make a motion if you wish.
What a verbiage? Yeah?
Well, it's right on there, I think.
You guys gotta learn the little trick, it's so moved.
And
That's all we
then
have
Kim
to
can
say.
pick it up later.
Recommended action.
I already did it.
So I don't think we have to say it all, we can just say, as Dave said, so moved, according to the recommended action and
I'm so
motion.
moved.
We have a motion. We have a motion.
So seconded.
And we got a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Tim Boder,
Aye.
Dale Parks.
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer,
Yes.
Kara Schaefer,
Yes.
Kevin Yeager.
Yes. Very good. Motion passes. And with that, we are on to the request to approve this one's for Hop Field Reservation. Take it away, Ms. Kaufman. It's the last one.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. This is an annual approval of the reservation of Memorial Park Fields 1, 2, and 3 for Saturday, July 10th and Sunday, July 11th, 2021 for the annual Brainerd Softball Invitational. All of the money to be received we receive it after the tournament, and that's regarding the maintenance worker and the field reservation cost because it's $50 per team. So all of that is collected after the tournament. Is there any questions? Our actual recommendation is that staff approves. This one's for HOP Inc. Their request to reserve Memorial Park Fields 1, 2, and 3 on Saturday, July 10 and Sunday, July 11th. And then staff also recommends assigning staff to create a field reservation request form to streamline community field reservation requests. Why this is important is because we would like in the future to not have to come to you to approve these types of things, that we could, if we had a streamlined document or form where we could just check, it's cool, clear, kosher, then we don't have to come to you anymore. And then myself and Paul would work on a form, as well as Kim, getting that solidified and probably bring it to you next park board meeting, so that if there's other reservations or park usage reservations, we can move forward with those at a quicker rate.
Thank you very much. We have 2 items here to discuss. First one will be the field reservation, and then we'll follow up with the recommendation on the allowance of staff to create a field reservation request form of some sort. Please, Troy.
I'll wait. Let's, if
very
we
good.
want to do the first item.
Let's take the first one then. The field reservation for this one's for HOP.
I'm a little surprised. I thought we already had this approved as maybe I was thinking last year because it was canceled last year possibly too, but I would certainly make a motion. I do 18 tournaments every summer, and this is by far the best privately ran tournament I ever been involved with, by far.
All right, we got a motion, right?
Yes.
Yep, and we got a second by Dale. Thank you. Any further discussion? I'm just so excited we got like a reservation for like something to happen on one of our fields. So I'm really good. I'm happy with this. So, all right. Hearing no discussion, we'll vote by roll call.
Tim Boder?
Aye.
Dale Parks?
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer?
Yes.
Kara Schaefer?
Yes.
Kevin Yeager?
Yes. Very good. Motion carries. And now we will open the discussion on the staff recommending the assigning of staff to create a field reservation request form. Did you have something that?
Yeah, so does this also help scheduling, like field maintenance? And I mean, wouldn't this be a very beneficial thing to everyone involved? And
Yes.
Yeah, not only that, Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, please.
I think having this will not only give us a streamlined process and helping with scheduling of fields, but it'll also outline any costs we have associated. If it's a tiered schedule, we were going to do some research on what other cities are charging for their field usage. I know we say $50 per team. Is that reflective of what other cities do? I know, Katie, you had some conversation with the city of Baxter, so we got to take all this into consideration and figure out what a fee schedule is. And then it also gives us an opportunity to talk to the city attorney about any kind of indemnification or anything we need to include about usage of a city park and making sure that we're covered in case someone gets hurt. And so that'll all be in that form, laid out nicely so that people know up front what they're paying, and how that fee schedule is laid out. So I think it to just be a nice streamlined process where they request something, we can hand them the form, they return it to us, we look at it administratively, and we can approve it.
And I would assume that'd be like a first to refuse again, if they want, if they want to renew the contract again for the following year. Would they have a certain date to be set up before, like Eric Hopjosi wants to do this for next year? Would he have until, let's say, April 1st to put this through to make sure it's already approved for next year?
I think we could figure out something in regards to that, like exactly, your frequent, the people that have an event every year.
Church service, he jumps in line to first something?
Right, and I think you could have a first right of refusal if they don't submit an application by March 1st, then it's open to whomever else will reserve that spot for you next year unless, I think that's certainly something we can put in there.
Very good. Anything else? Mr. Bedell, please.
My only 2 comments would be, one, just making sure that there's something in there dealing with alcohol, in case because we will get requests for that, specifically this one. And then, I don't even remember what my second one was. Then we're done. Good to go.
Speaking of alcohol.
Yeah, evidently.
Do you need a motion on this, anyone?
I think the direction's good enough again, thank you.
All right, very good. Anything else, anybody, on this? All right, continuing on, request to approve park scavenger hunt.
Yes.
Ms. Kaufman, please fill us in.
All right, so this came to me from Eric Hepner. He's a student life director for Central Lakes College, and he wants to conduct a scavenger hunt throughout our parks. And he would like to use these cases with combinations on them, and within them, they are like puzzle pieces or something to help them solve the puzzle. But here nor there with that. He just wants permission to use the parks and be able to lay these cases in the parks. After discussing with staff some of the concerns we had regarding that, it be a random box in our parks could be concerning to the public. So I did reach out to Eric and say, if you could please clearly label the boxes saying they're Central Lakes College property for specifically scavenger hunt, nothing of value is within these boxes, and that he also submit a list of where all the boxes are located for our maintenance staff so they don't pick them up or, for like lost and found items or something. So that's where we stand with all of that. We are recommending that we approve Eric Hepner's scavenger hunt and that the city of Brainerd is not responsible in the event of lost locked boxes. Also, Eric will release the location of the locked boxes to Katie Kaufman so that she can communicate to the maintenance staff so that we are all aware of them and not to touch them. And then further, relative to the last discussion item regarding this would be also fall under that park area / field reservation form that we discussed on the last agenda item, this would also be something that we could have streamlined if we had that form created. The last little tidbit is that this might be one of those things where we do need to bring to you guys because there may be some concerns on the form. Like, let's say they filled this all out and there were some concerns or some things that we wanted to run by you. Maybe this would be an opportunity we would bring this towards you instead of just streamlining saying okay. But this would be easier to navigate if he just had to submit the form in the first place to help him organize the event. So that is all I have. Any questions?
Yeah, please do.
2 questions. One is I noticed it's supposed to start, I think it was last week. It says it, last 2 weeks of February. That's right, we're in January. I'm just jumping ahead.
Living in the future. He's a man of vision. He's in the future, baby.
Drinking problem going on there.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that. The other question I have is, in terms of the combination boxes, now they have just one puzzle piece in there, or is there one for everybody who does the combination? And then the other question related to that is, where are they going to hide it? Hopefully they won't dig a hole someplace and people won't tramp over items that we have in the parks. Those are the concerns that I have, is that they're make sure that the people who are doing the hunting won't damage things in our park.
Yes, I did email him those questions, and he said they would not be buried, they would not be in a tree, they'll be in kind of plain sight.
What is that app that had it with the scavenger hunt thing? What is that?
Geocaching.
Geocaching.
So it's similar to that, basically, right? Except for it's owned by, or ran by called a scavenger.
I have a question. Is this going to go on indefinitely, or is this a permanent fixture to our parks, or is there a time frame that he's roughly laid out?
Sorry, 2 weeks.
Okay, 2 weeks. Okay, that was
2 week time frame. I didn't say
Okay.
that in my
Okay, got
spiel,
it.
but 2 weeks, and then if it's solved before 2 weeks, it would end at the point where it's all solved.
I think it's pretty cool that
Yeah.
they're wanting to do things in our parks. Can we get our logo on their stuff, maybe?
I'm thinking like
you
a
know,
little
why
cash
not?
box to get the combination open that you have to.
I don't know. But it would be kind of, I guess we're not like a corporation, but it doesn't always hurt to have that City of Brainerd Parks or whatever our logo is just on there to remind them like, hey, this is,
A cooperative
yeah.
effort.
Let me ask you a question then on that.
Yep.
If we do that and some kid stumbles and smacks his head on the corner of a box,
Oh,
does
okay.
that make the city liable
Well,
for
we're not
I'm just
hosting it. We're just,
playing the devil's advocate
yeah,
here? I
that's
mean,
The
true.
attorney.
Are
I don't
these
know.
also a possibility to be
We're gonna be sued.
I mean, it's crazy that I even bring that up, I know, but
No, it's,
You know,
you need to bring it up.
what,
but
I
it's-
think I just seen some guy was suing some company for, I mean, it was as crazy as McDonald's for
Coffee is
having hot
hot.
coffee.
Yeah.
Just in the last week, you know, I couldn't believe, I can't even remember what it was, is how much I thought about it, but we live in a crazy world.
Mr. Sandy?
I think,
Yeah.
you know, with this streamlined application, like we talked prior, we would talk to the city attorney and make sure we're protected on any kind of park usage or field usage request. He would have to weigh in on that. I know the city already has some indemnity built into public spaces by state statute, so I think for this type of event, we'd be protected either way, but I think it wouldn't hurt to have a statement in the application for both field usage and park usage that says something to the effect that you know, we're not liable for anyone that gets hurt or anything that gets damaged or whatever during the use of the park. So I think that would come in that application too. This one, I think there's probably some general indemnity that we already have as a city, so.
Just as a system of pre-check on the newly created form that we're talking about, is this the type of thing that you think would come before the board, before us to be reviewed? Or would this make it through your form?
I think it would make it through
Okay.
if we had it in place.
Okay. Mr. Bedell?
My recommendation on that would be just use your own judgment in that if it's something you think they're gonna get a phone call about, that's a great example. If you think
Under
there's
any
gonna be a
possibility
phone-
to get a,
If there's gonna be a phone call, bring it before. It's always good to have on your guys'
I would say this one is on the marginal edge of being brought before us. Lock boxes randomly scattered about our parks
It looked like people would be freaked out like it was a bomb.
with the wires coming out of it. and-
It is your standard
Little clocks on
silver
top.
case,
Tick, tick,
like if
tick,
you
tick.
open
it's like
it,
a
there
money
might be
box?
cash type
Okay.
look, yeah. Yeah.
I wanna do that.
All right, any further discussion on the,
Laser eyes on their scavenger hunt.
on the CLC scavenger hunt, project 2021? Any further discussion? All right, I'm looking for a motion here.
Oh, do we already make?
I think we need a motion. We got a request to approve.
You also.
Then so moved.
A second.
All right, we got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll vote by roll call.
Kim Boder,
Aye.
Dale Parks.
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer,
Yes.
Kara Schaefer,
Yes.
Kevin Yeager.
Yes. And that motion carries. Item number D, item letter D, sorry, discussion on Buster Park gazebo replacement. Mr. Sandy, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this item came up as something I wanted to just bring forward to you guys. We had $7,000 budgeted this year to replace the gazebo in Buster Park. What Tony, before he had left, what he had kind of planned on using was what you can see attached. It's more of a bus stop type looking shelter. Katie and I talked about this a little bit. The biggest use for this is kind of a windbreak from the river, and also for a weather perspective. And we just wanted to make sure that if we were to move forward with this type of structure, that it would be something that you guys liked in the dog park, or if we wanted to try to maybe approach some of these community organizations, purchase $7,000 worth of materials and have something built. The only, the biggest things I think in this circumstance are how easily maintainable is it? It's a tough environment, dogs and a lot of dirt and grime and things, and maybe a wood structure wouldn't be the best in this circumstance. I think that's why Tony was looking for something that has a glass or plastic and metal type that's easily cleanable and things. So really just looking for some direction on this. Obviously I have it attached in there. It looks like a bus stop, feels like a bus stop. It must be a bus stop, and that's really what it is. And so if you guys are wanting to move forward with this type structure, we can certainly do that. Otherwise, just looking for some direction on, how do we stick within that $7,000 budget and get something constructed that looks nice. So.
Ms. Schaefer, please.
So I think that I like this better than a wood structure, but do we want, I know looking ahead into the agenda, we're talking about how we want our parks to look, and the dog park, this would be a structure in the dog park. Would we want it to somehow match the rest of what our parks are looking like? I'm not sure how to make that. Someone can create it and make it look like the other buildings, but if we're trying to make everything look nice and similar, it'd be kind of cool. Why don't we start with this? I mean, if we're, you know, I don't know.
Absolutely.
Even though it's all glass, and that kind of makes me nervous though too, because are people gonna break that? Is it all glass? I can't really tell.
Of
course they are.
It's probably
Yeah.
shatterproof, just
Oh.
to it's a bus stop, yeah.
Okay.
I think it's probably,
But, yeah, so that would be, I would just wanted to try to match what our vision is, so we're not going back and having to replace this item, you know, in a few years when we need to. I don't know. Those are my thoughts.
Anybody else? Yeah, please, Troy.
Same thing that, you know, we talked about matching. One of the things I look at this and matching, and I know there's something coming up about shingles for the beach house. And to me, I'm thinking, you know, why aren't we doing more tin roofs instead of replacing shingles with shingles? You know, something less maintenance, as you brought up. And even the metal part of it, you know, metal rusts, if it's not, unless it's aluminum, paint chips, you know, has to be redone. So a lot of times if you're gonna do metal, I'm an old metal guy, I used to work on all kinds of steel structures. You know, powder coating, something that's gonna hold up for a while. A little more money on the front end, but, less maintenance issues moving downstream, but
Mr. Chansky?
I can answer that question. The reason you don't see a lot of those is because the city's zoning code actually has design standards for specific things in specific zones. And for the most part, we're looking at metal, especially on a roof. The code does allow for metal roofs, but they have to be standing seam concealed fastener. So it's not just your aluminum kind of shed roofing is allowed. So that's why you see there are restrictions on metal buildings in the city limits. So that's why generally you haven't seen them on a lot of the structures. Because the code currently doesn't, you know, unless it's that standing seam concealed fastener type metal roofing, it's not allowed.
But didn't we do metal roofs on our new buildings?
They're standing seam. Oh, no, like the warming house?
Yeah.
It's shingle.
Bingo.
And then the ones that we did at Memorial were standing seam. I have a question. Could we, just out of curiosity, is this something, I have two thoughts with this. Could we buy $7,000 worth of material and then reach out to Boy Scouts of America, JCs, anybody else to, I like the charm of what we've kind of got going there with the gazebo kind of look. That's my personal feeling on it. And I'm wondering if there's somebody we could reach out to or self-perform. Is this something that the guys could build in the shop and self-perform, build the gazebo and throw it in the dog park with $7,000 worth of material? Now it's negotiable whether or not the hours is more of an offset than, buying a different type of structure, but that's where my mind was with this. Not necessarily a question, just a comment.
right, yeah, it's something I could talk to Troy about and see if, and maybe it's something we can bring back. Certainly, we can talk to the guys and see if they'd be comfortable doing something like that, and
I think the Boy Scouts built the pergola in Gregory, correct? Is that right?
I believe so.
One Boy Scout.
Eagle
Oh, one Boy, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that shows you what one motivated Eagle Scout can do.
Kids fight out, I got the name of the pilot.
You say fun.
There's a rum drink calling my name right here.
So I think at this point, we're looking for staff to kind of keep digging on this just a little bit. Do we have clear direction there, guys? Okay.
Sorry, one more thing. I just thought of.
Please,
So if we're actually gonna do something similar to this, either have the guys build or buy something, should we ask another city that actually uses it as a bus station? Like how often do they have to replace those? I mean, I'm thinking like in Minneapolis, that's always vandalized. And I don't know how often maybe it's like they replace it every 5 years, or maybe the top always shatters, or maybe there's like something that might always be replaced. Maybe we just reach out to like St. Cloud. I don't know. Is that probably the closest place, or
Yeah,
Maple Grove? But that might be
Build
an
it in
idea.
the shape of a doghouse.
That
There
would
you
be
go.
cute.
A little doghouse inside the dog park that people sit in.
Yeah.
Right? That's free,
I
right
like
there.
it.
Boom, for the public. Free, just free idea right there. Boom. All right. Anything else?
nope.
All right, very good. Continuing on, item E, this is the discussion of the Gregory Park leisure lights. Please, Katie. Sorry?
Yep.
Mr. Sandy.
This was forwarded on. We had a complaint from one of the residents in North Brainerd about the lights around the leisure rink staying on all night. So I did a little research on this, talked to Troy a little bit. Those lights were, I think, incorporated last year or a year prior to that. The lights around the rink, right around the warming house. Not talking about the warming house light itself, but the ones that are on the light poles. They're connected in with the sidewalk lights, which do stay on all night. Trent Hawkinson, who works for BPU, he's their electric lead. He did state that we could get something done for pretty cheap by putting those on a timer. I'm just bringing this forward as there was a complaint that was forwarded to me from a city council member. They just wanted us to look at it and see if there was a way we could get those to shut off after the park closes. I think we could easily get that done with a timer for, probably less than $200 total. And long term, I was talking a little bit to Katie, if we're staffing our warming houses, it would be good to look long term on getting that shut off. If we're planning on utilizing these lights long in the future, getting that shut off kind of next to the one that's already in the warming house for the light that overlooks the rink on the warming house itself, just so they're right next to each other so that the rink attendant can shut them off when the night's done. But as a temporary solution, I think we can get something done for a lot cheaper. If you guys are comfortable with that, I would just move forward. I don't really need a motion. I was just bringing it forward to your attention that we did receive a complaint about that.
Oh, yeah, please.
I just have one question. Are we sure that other residents aren't, are we gonna run into a problem with other residents if we do this and then we find out that there's 10 other residents who say, why are you turning those lights off? We like those. It deters.
I was going to ask a similar question. The context of the complaint, was it electric usage or was it that there's lights shining all night long?
It was both, actually. It came from a former city employee. He said that, it probably costs a lot to light that all night. I think lights are great. I think that from that perspective, the lights along the sidewalks and on the warming house itself are probably sufficient, and the ones that are up on the light poles shining are kind of a nuisance more than anything. And so I could see where that complaint comes from. It was just and if you guys feel that that is, fine, then we can just bring that forward and say that we talked about it, and we don't feel that it's necessary at this time. So, but I mean, it would.
Do the lights that are in those lights that we're talking about specifically, do they meet our current lighting ordinance for parks? I'm not putting anyone on the. I'd like to ask staff to look into. Sorry, yeah. I'm sorry, Ms. Chansky. I'd like to ask staff to look into whether or not those lights do meet our current ordinance for lighting in the parks. And I would also like to point out that we've had like no vandalism in that. Now it could be because of the cold, but I think one could make the argument that lighting in the core of a park, even after hours, may have an effect on vandalism down the road. So, please, Katie.
Thank you. Those lights were added specifically to surround the rink there. So they were added, and then we were going to eventually string lights from them around the rink. So their sole purpose is to light that rink. So shutting them off when the rink's closed, I don't really see it being an issue.
There was a discussion about a push-button timer kind of thing, though, right? Is that right? I'm just worried about those shutting off right while people are cycling off, right while people are skating, but as a safety issue. But
yeah, if I may, I don't know if that's appropriate for that type.
Okay.
I think it's more appropriate for tennis courts and things like that that don't involve sharp objects and skating around. But I think lights, like in my job as city engineer, lights are catch-22. You have 50% of the residents in Brainerd who love street lights, and 50% would rather have a completely dark city after midnight, So they are a controversial issue. We're going to make some people unhappy if we shut them off, and some people are going to be happy if we leave them on. So.
And that was my only
Yep.
deal, is we had one complaint. Is that person the minority of people living around the park, and
It's a very good
90% of them want the lights on.
Right.
Is it worth finding that out before we do anything? I don't.
And this kind of plays into that design standard a little bit with our parks, what they should look like for lighting also, as we've talked about paint and shingles and those types of things, but should our lighting look, analogous throughout the parks as well? And should there be core lighting? How late should it run? Those types of things, all stuff we could think about.
think
I don't know, we have a clear direction here. Yeah, please, Kara.
the timer though, if it's gonna be $100 plus whatever a little bit, but if the timer, so let's say it goes dark and we get vandalism or people start complaining, we could just unplug it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a pretty,
Adjust.
or, yeah.
In series, yeah.
So, I mean, if it's gonna save the city money and make, because maybe this guy was like speaking for half the neighborhood, you know, and because he was like an ex-city employee, so he felt comfortable bringing it, or who knows? But if, I don't know. So, I guess.
Do you have direction? Do we feel like we have direction here?
Yeah,
Or are
I
you
think
looking
we
for
can
more,
bring
Mr.
more
Sandy?
information, yeah.
Okay. Good enough to move on? Oh, very good. All right, this is an added item, item number F. I'm going to turn this at this point over to Mr. Parks, who asked for the item to be added, please. This is food truck
Okay.
discussion.
The center had asked me to bring forward a request to whether or not they could sell donuts during the arts in the park, not arts, music in the park. And I got a contract for the food truck. And right now, the way the contracts state, it's either $50 a time or $350 for a set session for a license fee in order to have a food truck in the park. Then my question was, as I started thinking about that, because I tried to look through the city charter to define what is a food truck, because they would be selling donuts probably from a table right next to the bandstand, and I know there's no way that they would want to spend $50 because they won't even make that much. They might make a couple bucks, and it's a fundraiser. So I guess my question was, is there a definition of what is a food truck, and do we classify all sales under the same classification as food trucks? That kind of is my question, because we basically have a contract that says if people have food trucks, then they have to pay the fee. I don't know if we have anything that talks about setting up a stand to sell a low-cost item during a nonprofit. And in this case, it's some of the money that the city gives to the center, not all of it, but there's a small portion anyway that's used to put the concerts in the park. And so it was just a question that I had, and I didn't want to fill out the contract and bring it forward until we find out if it's even worthwhile for them to do it. If that's the way it is, then that's the way it is. But I'd like somebody to come up with a definition, and I don't know if that's us or I think the city as a whole would want that.
Yeah, Mr. Chansky, if you're prepared, otherwise we can
Nope, I
let you.
can address
Very good,
it,
thank you.
Mr. Parks. So, Tim actually forwarded your request to me when you sent it, and so, there's kind of a couple parts to this. Food trucks currently, as they are regulated by section 515-66 of the zoning code. It's actually, it refers to them as transient food units. And in that section, it talks about permitted uses as transient food units, including trucks, trailers, wagons, carts, seasonal temporary food stands, etc., are allowed on public and private property subject to the following, and then there's like 24 conditions. Two things in that. First of all, this kind of covers the city side, and this is where the condition says, one of the subject to the following says, transient food units are permitted to operate during festivals and community events, provided it is approved by the city of Brainerd as part of the festival and community events permit. So, we get, for example, Street Fest. As part of their permit, they talk about they're going to have vendors there. Vendors are allowed to be there as a part of that event. It's been covered under their permit. They don't have to get their own food, what we call a food truck license.
No, but they have to get the $50 permit or whatever the city charges.
And that's something to the second piece. There's kind of what's happened. There's a city side and a park side, and that's because there's another item 20 under the following. The conditions is sales are permitted in a city park when approved by the City of Brainerd Parks and Recreation Board. So when this section was created, what happened is it was developed. The planning commission went through a process of developing this ordinance when back in, I think, about 2010, 2012. And at that time, they created that, there's actually an annual fee, and they have transient units, so there's specific districts within the community food trucks can operate, and it's actually an annual fee. But then I believe what happened is at some point, the Parks Board said, well, this section here that says, well, in a city park, you know, we want to have control of what happens. Obviously, you're the stewards of the park, so that's where that section came from, is anything that happens in the park goes to the Parks Board, and the Parks Board created your form that says $50 per time. So that fee is a Park Board fee. The city would say, on the city side, it's $300 a year. So really, when it comes to what happens in the parks, it's up to the Park Board what you want to do. I just wanted to point out that in the ordinance itself, it does speak about anything that happened to an event, and for example, music in the park, I would say that's an event that's being, I'm assuming has been approved by the Park Board. You could say, well, it's in support of that event, and therefore they're covered by that event permit or whatever the Park Board approved, if the Park Board wanted. But ultimately, it's up to the Park Board what happens in the parks.
Okay.
That's my understanding, yep. That's where I was gonna go with this also. I believe the charter explicitly states that we
So,
have domain
so the
us.
discussion then is among us as to whether or not there is a definition, or we use the city definition and, based on our forms, that there is a $50 fee whenever somebody wants to sell something in one of the parks. And if that's the case, you know, so be it. But I just wanted to make sure that I think our forms talk about food trucks. I don't remember anything else other than food trucks. So, you know, it's not really defined in there. Maybe we need to.
Well, good point also, because don't forget that we, on the night out that happens in midsummer, we allow the Brainerd Northside neighborhood to provide food service, I believe for free, for just a donation in kind with Essentia. So I think that the Park Board would have the ability to do whatever they would want to do for activities regarding that inside the parks. That's my understanding. I saw a couple people nodding to me. Jennifer, first, please, were you looking at the charter? Is that what you were motioning for?
I wasn't. This
Okay.
is really interesting. In fact, I'd like to dig into it a little bit more. So.
Kim, please.
Mr. President, we do have a request for use of city facilities form that we've used for years for events. We ask if they're going to be selling or providing concessions, and those come to the Park Board for approval. I would think this would fall under that umbrella.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Bedell.
My question to you would be, I believe you created a form where it's a reoccurring event as well. So could that not fall under maybe one fee for the reoccurring event? That could be one solution that might be a compromise.
Yeah, definitely.
That'd make it easier.
Yeah.
Then we wouldn't have to address it each year, and, because to me, I certainly wouldn't want to charge the senior center to sell donuts.
Agreed.
I mean, I wouldn't even want to be a part of
Yeah.
someone who made that decision,
Well,
because
I'll bring forward the form. And Kim, could I ask you to take a look at that form? Because to me, there's no reason we need two separate forms, the same identical thing, except one says it's for a period of time, and the other one says it's for one time. It seems like we could have one form that they just check a box and.
The Park Board at that time modeled their permits after the cities when they went through the whole food truck, the mobile food unit ordinance. So
It just
Park
seems
Board
like
at
it
that
makes
time-
sense to check a box and you just have one form rather than trying to figure out, you know, which
And we've
form.
only just used that honestly in the event of an actual mobile food truck, which I think we've had one or two
Okay.
instances
And-
of that. We have mini events, such as Pumpkin Festival, where we'll have a vendor come in and pay a $50 vendor fee. It's a one-day special event fee to sell
Yeah.
items.
Mr. Chansky?
And I was just going to add, Mr. Parks, right now the Planning Commission is actually in phase one of looking at doing a comprehensive update of the zoning code. We actually have a consultant in, and this food truck ordinance, at least on the city side, is probably one item that's going to be looked at in some level during that process, so.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
wouldn't ever consider your event a food truck.
Right.
Like,
Right,
it's,
and-
like you said, there's a
Yeah.
table.
And,
So
and
that would,
that was the information that got forwarded to me, and I guess I should have thought about the event form, and that's what I'll do is the event form, so.
Hypothetically, if we got this streamlined, it's something that wouldn't even need to come before us. The larger commercial items probably should come before the park board, but these smaller one-off items, that could be handled 100% with staff, and I would think, yeah.
All right, thanks for the input.
We good, Dale?
Yes.
All right, perfect, thank you. All right, at this time, I will open the public forum at 5:21. Does anyone like to come before the park board with any open items? Is there anyone on the line that we know of? And it looks like a no, so I'm going to close the public forum at 5:21, and we will continue on to reports. We'll start with you, Mr. Sandy, city engineer.
I'll actually defer to
Sorry.
Katie first.
We will go with the deferment, and we will go directly to Katie, please.
Thank you. We kind of separated by topic. My first topic is the recreation. Just to update you guys, we did end up canceling youth and adult pond hockey this year due to low enrollment. I'm sure to many different reasons, but definitely one of them being COVID related. And then the other update is that I'll be starting to solidify adult softball registration information in the next month and getting that out and getting registration started, as well as a registration form for them to fill out and turn in if they don't feel like they can come into the office. The next item is community ed and YMCA contract details. Just want to keep you guys updated. I have already met with the YMCA discussing logistical information as well as giving them their shirts that we agreed that we were giving them that we already paid for last year. And then also a logistical meeting with community ed, giving them the shirts as well. And then we will be, I forgot to give them their hats, but I'll be getting those to them as well. The next item was Brainerd Baxter Baseball Association. I've been attending a lot of their board meetings. 2 of them, I shouldn't say a lot, but they have discussed potentially adding a 9U state qualifier, and I said that we'd be willing to advertise that as well on our website if they did. And that also, if we move forward with the field reservation form, that we would forward that to them so they can use that to help organize their tournaments in our parks. So they're aware of all the fees that potentially we would assign them or not assign them, but just so you're aware, that I brought that up to them, potentially starting a contract with them. And that I also listed the website if you guys want to check out what they're currently doing. And we've definitely smoothed over the registration process. So that was a little bit hectic in the beginning of the year, but we got it all smoothed over. So everything is being directed to the BBBA. So. And then the refunds were issued for the checks that were sent to Brainerd Parks and Rec. So that's all cleared over. Our warming houses did open. Go ahead.
Interject?
Yep.
Yeah, please, yes, Troy.
So first, I'm, as you probably all know, a member of the BBBA board, and would like to thank Kim and Katie for, and Paul for your guys' work in helping that transition with the team sending registrations, and I'm sure that was annoying, but appreciate the work that you guys did to help direct them. It's not something that just happens overnight, and we had to create a website and an email and find a tournament director and a tournament coordinator, and so making good progress. We're getting a lot of, I think last week we got 15 more communities commit to the tournaments. And when it was brought up, there's also 9U team that has never been part of these tournaments, and we should really think about doing that for that age group for the kids in our community. So that would give the kids in our community a chance from 9U up to 14U to play in a tournament in their hometown. And I don't know where that ended up yet. I know he's gonna contact Myas and see about putting that on their website as well. And so moving forward, you know, I think the association is definitely wants to partner with the Brainerd Parks Department, the city, the school district, Baxter Parks. They've already had a working relationship with Baxter for many years. And as I explained to them, this is new for Brainerd. So this is going to be, you know, probably some growing pains. And but in all of our decisions that I have expressed through the board is remember and keep in mind, this is for our youth. You know, this isn't a profitable. This isn't for putting money in the board members' pockets or the coaches' pockets. It's a bunch of volunteers working to give the kids in our community something that they really haven't had together for decades. And that's a unified community of kids being able to successfully participate in tournaments. And I say successfully because it hasn't been what it has been in the past. And our goal is to get back to that. And not just winning, but sportsmanship and teaching how to be a good community member. And so there's been some discussion with some of the coaches, if you will, that hey, we're moving in the wrong direction. Let's not do community ed ball. Let's not do rec ball. And that's not going to happen. Everyone who, you know, there's some who say, well, they should just play on one team. We've expressed, both myself and Steve Hansen, the other co-chair, that no, we are partnering with our communities. This is the only way this works, is to have close partnerships with our communities, and you know, we're not gonna break that. This is don't look a gift horse in the mouth, so to speak. So I'm excited about where it's going, and again, just want to express my gratitude for the work that you guys have done to help us to get over that hump here at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Also, to add on, I did speak to Joe Polkamp, and he said that he will be integrating the traveling players he is aligned with that vision. He'll be the one that's taking over our competitive youth programming for softball and baseball at Community Ed. So it's important to have him on that same mission that Troy was just explaining. So moving forward, thank you, Troy, also. Warming houses, we did open yesterday, and we plan to be open through the first week of March. The hours are listed. All of our employees are hired and ready to go. So that's just the update with the warming houses.
Katie, real quick,
Sure.
I just want to say, I want to thank staff for putting this together for what is realistically 5-6 weeks of skating here. It would have been real easy to just say, look, we're done for the year. So I know there was a bunch of time and effort that went into getting people hired, making this happen for a relatively short payoff. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Katie, and whoever was behind making this happen. Thank you. And the citizens of Brainerd should be very thankful that this was born for even this short amount of time. Just something good happening. So thank you, and continuing on. Sorry.
I want to piggyback on that just to say that I appreciate the feedback that you're giving us through the emails. Okay. It's appreciated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love this like stoplight thing. I had people say like, "Oh, that's so cool." I'm like, "I didn't do it." They're like, "Aren't you on the park board?" I'm like, "Yeah, that was not me." No, I'm not good.
Yeah.
Well, I did. I said it was all Kara Schaefer's.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, well, that's
Great
a
work. Great work.
good transition. Good
Yeah.
transition. That was the next topic I was going to cover. Is that we did implement a new rink condition reporting. That was kind of me and Troy. He's kind of regretting it now because I contact him every morning saying, "What's the rinks like?" But so if you're not familiar with it, we just have the green for good quality ice. The yellow is more fair. You need to avoid some areas. There might be dirt showing. They might be rough because we just blew off the rinks. We didn't have the time to flood. And then poor meaning it just snowed and at 3 p.m. and we couldn't get the snow off the rinks. Or over a weekend, as you know, we don't have maintenance staff that are working over the weekend, so it might be poor over the weekend potentially. Any questions regarding that before I move on? Okay. The next topic was the dog park. I did receive a concern that there might be an illness in the dog park, and I did move forward into a discussion on our Buster Park page asking if there's any community members that also their dogs had experienced an illness. So far, it seems like it's more of an outlier type illness. It's bacterial. It's not a common virus that you would vaccinate your dog for. That the concern is it's potentially more relative to a feces of some sort potentially. So not a high risk item at this moment after some research. And then as far as the special events update, Valentine's Day party most likely not going to happen this year due to we're not selling concessions, large group gatherings. We'll be moving forward with thinking about whether the Brainerd Easter egg hunt is feasible or not. We'll probably be discussing with the service clubs that are involved, as well as what the government guidelines are at that time. And that's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Sandy?
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Just a couple quick updates. 1 month into this, I'm still really trying to wrap my head around everything that goes on and what you guys do. So I appreciate the opportunity. It's been good so far, very good. I've spent a day with Katie driving around the parks. I've spent a day with Troy and Park Board President Yeager, getting familiarized with the buildings, facilities, maintenance needs, all that. Trying to wrap my head around everything, and I'm getting a better handle on things. From the Memorial Parks perspective, I was fortunate enough to work with Tony during the original selection of the consultant, and I've been involved here and there as this process has moved forward. Really, as we get through bidding and things, we get into the territory where I'm really comfortable with, and that's building things and making things look good. So I'm really excited for that project, working with the splash pad folks still, trying to incorporate everything that they want and need in that area as part of that too. So through these tours that I've gone through with both Katie, Troy, and Kevin, you guys have all taken a lot of time to put together your needs and your wants in the parks. I think sometime here in the future, and it might go correspondingly with what we're talking about in our design standards, and we might need to get these in place first before we actually move forward with some sort of work session. But what I'm proposing is that staff, we create more or less a bucket list of needs, maintenance needs, capital wants in every park. And then we need to go through like a prioritization session with each one of you, where it's a list and you prioritize what is number one in each park, what's number two, what's maybe the lowest on your list. And that way, from that, I can take all that information and we can create a very comprehensive capital and even a maintenance plan. And that's kind of what my goal is here, is that's the first thing that I tackled when I took on the street and sewer department. Is the capital plan is where you start, and then you work on the maintenance and the things. So really, I don't know what comes first. Do we move into a design standard conversation? Kevin brought this up to me. It might be worthwhile, if we want a comprehensive design standard, it might be something that staff would look to like a WSN for, if we're talking door hardware, shingles, paint, it might be something that we just ask WSN what they think something like that would run. If it's, $5,000, $7,500, it might be worthwhile in the upfront to get a 3-page document that basically just lays out, boom, 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 here's what we use, here's what we do in every park. And then from there, we would have this work session. And so just a little bit of discussion. I can approach WSN and ask them what something like that would cost if they could look at our most recent buildings, come up with a common theme, and bring that forward to us and see what that would cost us to do so. And then from there, in the meantime, I'll be working on this list that we've all gone through the parks, gotten a tour of them, and I'll put this list together based on your guys' surveys, the facility study, and my own evaluation. And from there, we can work together to come up with a pretty good plan, I think, to present to the city council every year. And so, if you guys are amenable to that, I guess I would just ask that you allow me to approach WSN, just to ask them, start that conversation, about, brief design standard that we could utilize for the future. I guess I'll leave it at that. There's some other, updates, just, we've been purchasing capital equipment ever since the budget was adopted. And then I have just a quick maintenance report that Troy put together, what we've been working on, from a maintenance perspective. So, if there's any questions, or, if you guys want to act on allowing me to do that, then that would be good. Thank you.
Any discussion?
I was just curious what the kiosk was at Gregory Park. What is that? It says a kiosk installed for Northside Association.
Yeah, go ahead, Katie.
I just spoke with Troy about this today. We took the kiosk from in front of our office that had, cancellations or like contact information for the campground, and then they just transferred that kiosk over to the Gregory Park warming house.
Okay, so it's just like a bulletin board or something?
Yeah, it's enclosed. It's lockable. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's not electronic.
No.
Is it? Right.
Okay, so it just like what is it gonna be used for? Like, what are they putting in there? The North Side, like, the neighborhood association is doing something with it?
Yes, that's it. It's
Okay.
Krista Sukup, I think, will
Yeah.
be maintaining it.
Okay.
I'm guessing National Night Out, stuff like that, announcements, that
Okay.
sort of thing.
She presents that to staff first for approval.
I don't know. You'd have to ask Troy.
I guess I didn't know anything about it.
Me neither.
Mr. President.
I think we want that to come to staff first, right, for approval? Anything the public wants to put in a kiosk?
Probably, since sorry, Kim?
Sorry, Kim, sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. Kim, please.
I think I saw a request come through. I think Krista contacted me first because she saw a kiosk for the Brainerd History from Carl Faust, I believe, has one over there. Could we have one for the neighborhood association? So I forwarded it on to probably Tony at that time. So that's where it started, I believe.
Mr. Bedell?
Similar philosophy. If you guys are gonna get a phone call, that should be coming to you.
Agreed.
Just be aware of that.
It's a public putting a public document on a public space, so that's my concern, is we have no control over the content, which I think we would maybe want to have. Not saying there's anything, but.
Yeah, because we'd want to post like all of our events in there, you'd think, because it would be, we would own it, or is the neighborhood association? And sorry, I didn't mean to make something big of this, but I was just like, oh, that sounds cool, but what, I didn't know what it was. So is that like?
Yeah, I guess I didn't know anything about it either. It's the first time I heard about it too, so I was just put it in there from Troy, so. We can certainly talk to them and make sure that whatever goes in there is run by us first.
I think so.
My guess is it probably was, nobody's staffing over here anymore. What is this being used for? Can we move this over to Gregory Park? I don't know, but no?
No, they just asked if they could have a kiosk over there. I think there used to be one with an information for the neighborhood association, and then when the new building came in, I think it went away. And then Levon Danzel donated money for the one for the history information. And the neighborhood association saw that and wanted one too.
Kind of inclusive,
Agreed.
so, but I guess more to come, I don't know, just find.
Do you want staff to follow up with Krista to
Yeah.
see
Maybe just
if
see
we
what-
could have rights to it
Right,
as
you're
well?
the president.
I think we want staff to have some control over this. Am I understanding that this is a locked box that only the north side has the keys to?
Because I think it makes sense to, as you mentioned, advertise our things that are going to be in Gregory Park, whether it's something Dave has, like Arts in the Park, or other activities.
Yeah.
I think we should have some control over it, although I see where the north side could use it too. I mean,
Right.
especially for their
Shared.
national night
I think we
out
could
and so forth.
make a motion for for staff to be a moderator of the content. But yes, go ahead, please, Jennifer.
So just thinking about this, because we have kiosks downtown too, and sorry, maybe this was raised as I was digging into some stuff, but maybe this ought to be a policy. You know, I mean, whether it's in a city park or on our city streets, our sign that we own, you know, Brainerd Community Action handles that. Oh, do you really? Okay.
The
Okay.
mayor's spoken, so.
There we go. And I was just thinking, like, for example, the Babe the Blue Ox, the Downtown Business Coalition wanted to put that somewhere. Our attorney advised us that it should be donated to the city, if it's going to be on city property. So anyway, this is just raising maybe a bigger discussion that I think we should have internally.
Okay.
So staff will get back to us on kind of some findings on what that might look like. The attorney might very well want to look at this as well for free speech kind of stuff. I don't know, but very well could be. Dave, or no?
No, that's a good point. There may be something where if you allow someone to post, you have to allow all to post.
Right.
That has come up in the past with sign ordinances in terms of people placing political signs.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That is a good question, but that then has to flow back.
I'm sure
to-
the intent of the North Side, we're very sorry if you're listening in, Brainerd North Side Association, where there's not the intent to censor your great intentions, but this potentially is a can of worms.
Yeah.
I love the idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. I think there should just be some oversight. You may be leery of when you start asking lawyers. The lawyers tend to have a very similar approach to most things. So just a heads up on that.
They're good at looking out for us.
They're definitely jealous right now.
The bar has been, yes. Very good. Yeah, Troy, please.
I'd like to go back to what Mr. Sandy is talking about. These work sessions and design standards, I think are, to me, they're exciting. And I think it's a great idea to work in that direction. I think it's a no-brainer. I like it.
Does anyone disagree with letting Mr. Sandy approach Widseth or anybody that he feels would be a good participant to at least talk about what a design standard creation might cost?
I don't see what that's gonna hurt by approaching and getting.
Yeah. I think the idea isn't necessarily to go back and redo stuff that we already have got, but the idea is that any maintenance going forward meets a design standard. So 30 years from now, everything has this nice matchy kind of feel.
Right, and on that, Mr. Chair, just looking at the stuff we already have that's brand new, maybe look for common themes, common
Definitely.
colors, common hardware that we can build off of.
Yeah,
So I think
fantastic.
that would be a good start. And I don't necessarily want to hold a work session until we have something concrete, and so that we can build off that. And so I would recommend doing that first, and then we'll put together, and it'll give me some time to put together all this information I have rolling around in my head. That
Awesome, fantastic. That's really
Do you want
exciting
on
because
paper?
this plays into like our whole park design, Memorial Park, the Lum Park, the master plan, all of that. That's exciting stuff. And all that work we did with evaluating the parks, this all plays into it actually coming to fruition with some change. So that's great stuff. Thank you for Paul and everybody else. You have the direction we need here, staff, on all of that. Very good. Jennifer Bergman, you're up.
I will be, first I'll turn my microphone on. I will be very brief, just a couple of updates. Just like you did this evening, the council also, they gave the oath of office to our two newest council members, Tiffany Stengline and Mike O'Day. And then they also held elections for council president, and Kelly Bevins was elected council president. And then appointed chairs for Safety and Public Works and Personnel and Finance. Alderman O'Day is the chair of Safety and Public Works, and Alderman Johnson is the chair of Personnel and Finance. Charter Commission, so as you know, we did round one. Those changes of round one were phase one were approved by the city council. That first phase really was those items that were conflicting with state law. The Charter Commission met a couple of weeks ago to look at this phase two, which the intent was it to be things that conflicted or weren't being done the way that they were stated in the charter. A perfect example is the health board. The charter says we have a health board, but we don't have a health board. So the discussion has been either we need to have a health board or take the health board out of the charter. So the Charter Commission looked at a number of those things. Boy, I don't know, Kevin, what, 20, 30, 40, 50 pages?
It's riveting stuff, but yes, yes, we're digging into it.
And so the Charter Commission asked us to do some digging on some things and bring some stuff back to the next Charter Commission meeting. I don't expect the next round of changes to go to the council probably until March, by the time we get those changes to the council. Two other things, and I just, this is a teaser that got brought up today. I don't know that we are prepared to have a discussion about it, but I just wanted to let you know something that was raised today is the community garden, which has been coordinated by, as I understand it, the FFA alumni. Maybe something that staff is going to want to have a discussion with the park board about. So just literally came up, 2-3 hours ago.
Do they build gazebos?
Future farmers, well, who knows? And then last but not least, I do these both for BPU and for the park board. Are you okay with just verbal updates, or would you prefer that my reports also be in writing? I didn't ask BPU that this morning, I should have, but any preference?
I'm personally good with verbal, but I'll defer
I
to
like
the
verbal
group
'cause
here.
Okay,
we read everything else and then hear it and then, so, yeah.
and I think that's all I got, unless you have questions of me.
None? And with that, that's the last of our items. Looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. We'll vote by roll call.
Tim Boda, he's gone. Dale Parks.
Yes.
Troy Rushmeyer. Kara Schaefer.
Yes.
Kevin Yeager.
Yes.
Yes. Like, it's not updated?